We are a collective that operates by many time zones. To some, I think might be kind of a daunting task, but to me, I take as a measurement of our global commitment to solidarity, especially during this unprecedented time where there are several genocides going on, three of which are on the African continent, and a global rebellion against settler colonialism. But yet we're here as a collective to draw strength from each other. And so this specific day, November 18th, 2023, marks International Migrants Day. And the theme by the United Nations is Act Today. Thus, Diaspora Africa has assembled this panel, and again, just thank you so much for being a part of the panel, to provide a space for practitioners who are using their technological platforms to highlight technology for migration across Africa and the diaspora. So, with all that said, welcome to our panel, Technologizing African Migration, a Revolutionary Alternative. And an emphasis on the question mark, because I don't think I posed that in my tone to sound too much like a question. So to begin, I'd like to open this up for our panelists just to introduce themselves so panelists, when I call you, if you would please introduce yourself, say a little bit about your work, say a little bit about your respective organization and the work you do on your respective organization, and if there's anything else you think relevant to add. And so I'd like to go by order of our flyer, but John Paul, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Hope I'm audible.
Cool. It's a pleasure for you to join us. Were you able to hear? I'm sorry.
Okay. I hope I'm audible. Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. From this side. I'm Rugaba John Paul. I'm the founder or the CEO of Sanyin Media. Sanyin Media, basically, we do podcasts, events, and journals. And our main focus or our main vision is to give the African diaspora, where I am currently, I'm based in China, but the wide-based African diaspora platform to share their views and stories in order to transform the African narrative. We have quite a successful podcast, the Sanyin podcast. And right now we're trying to diversify our portfolio by maybe going to events, going to webinars like this, and interacting with a wide range of, people from the African diaspora. And when I mean African diaspora, I also mean also other people who are not specifically like in Africa. I would say the Caribbean or the Afro-Brazilians, or the Afro-Mexicans, the African Americans, so that we try to, transform that mindset. So someone may ask, where did I get that feeling of, things are not right? I grew up in a family. Okay, just to say, I'm from Uganda, Kampala, and most of the mainstream media was, if it's Africa, it's not news, it's it's bad governance, everything. So we didn't have that positivity that I would maybe pass on to my children or pass on to my peers. And having a chance to leave Africa and go to diaspora, it even became worse because you have issues of racism and all that. So basically, that's the work I do. I'm very glad to join this webinar to share a lot about African migration and basically how we can mitigate it and improve it using technology. I'm very passionate about technology. It's what I'm studying. And yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
And thank you. So Singer.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am Tosinga. I'm a singer, songwriter, actress, and media personality, originally from Nigeria. I used to live in London, UK, but I'm currently based in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. Like I said, a singer, so I'm passionate about doing music, message music. that connects with people, especially when they have a longing for home. So most of my songs are always themed with a home type of messages. And as a media personality, I host a show called Diaspora Talks with Tosinga on Afro Vibes TV and also on YouTube, where I get immigrants to come share their stories of migration, of adapting to a new culture, just to humanize their experience and to give an avenue of storytelling from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So I do that, and also through my film and theater, I do a lot of storytelling, portraying authentic African characters, try to do roles that are not necessarily stereotypical of what you would think about the African immigrants. So so through film, theater, through music, through the creative, that's what I am. So I like to think of myself as a cultural ambassador of sorts in the arts and creative space, especially for the Black diaspora. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Okay, and our last panelist, Uyapo. I'm not sure if you're speaking yet, but we're not able to hear you.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me
thank
now?
you. Mhm.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Uyapo. I am a freelance journalist. I am also the founder of the organization Afro Communities of Hope. We are an organization that seeks to tell the migration story from the migrants themselves perspective. So we are into decolonizing the narratives from an African perspective and tell those stories that are usually are not told in the public media. So we as an organization we seek to train particularly teenagers, but also to expand as well to other young people so that they can also learn journalistic principles and so that they can also tell their own stories. So that is basically all about all that I do. Maybe yes. Thank you.
You say that's all that you do, but that's quite a bit. And all of you are committed to very, I think, exciting work, and that's diverse but also connected. Speaking about journalism and about being a cultural ambassador, and then the wide diaspora, and also the Afro diaspora that I think isn't often in conversation with the African, but is also relevant. And with all that said, thank you all, and thank you for the commitments to what you're doing in your respective organizations. And it sets the stage at hand for the conversation we'll be having today on the radical potential of technology and African migration, and I guess we could say the Afro migration as well. Diaspora happens in many shapes and many forms, but overall, as the programming you all work attests, Africans tend to move for opportunity. And with that said, how do you all utilize technologies you engage with on your platforms? So the podcast, or the podcast that's also on Afrobeats TV, as well as the storytelling, journalism, empowering others to tell their stories, to contribute to assisting migrants as they move to their new locations. So how do your platforms as technology work to assist well, Africans in the diaspora. And I'll open this up for whoever's just ready to go.
Okay, I'll go first. I think when it comes to migration, especially from where I come from, East Africa, it's very sad, in my own opinion. Okay, in my opinion, especially country where I come from, because we are the second youngest population in the world, Uganda, and every time you go to the airport, most of the youth are leaving to the Arab world. I would say the ladies between the ages of about 18 to around 30 are leaving to the Arab world to work as house helps or stuff like that. And it creates a demographic problem back home. But with all that said, when it comes to the platform, the podcast, how it works with that, how I try to use it, most of the people I interview on my podcast, if you check, so far I have like 80 episodes, I would say probably 70% of the guests from there have left their countries for basically two reasons. One, education; two, economic. I would say economic migrants. Very few are climate change migrants. And they always tell me that they always want to look for the quote unquote good life abroad, but on average, they find difficulties in the first 5 years. So, first 5 years, it comes to you have no one to talk to, your countrymates aren't that friendly as you suspected, the language barrier, like here where I am in China, all these issues. They face all these issues, immigration in the country they're going to. And I haven't really interacted with someone who's quote unquote illegal immigrant, but they'll still have those issues when it comes to visa renewal and all that things. So my podcast tries to show the hassles, the deep, deep, deep hassles that people go through, so that people get to know. Because when you're back home, everyone tells you the good life. When you come to London, when you come to China, when you come to this, everything is fine. Just board on a plane, go to the embassy, get the visa, come back home. But they don't really tell you, once you put your 2 feet there, how do you navigate through it? So whenever I'm trying to interview people, I tell you, how did you manage to break through from step 1 to step 10, the process and the hassles and everything? So that's how I'm trying to use my platform, my podcast, to try to have a discussion on immigration. Thank you.
Okay, can I just jump in? All right. Okay, so we all know that media these days is at the tip of our fingertips, is at the tip of our fingers. Everybody's on social media. I believe that social media is one of the main platforms of digital technology these days. So people are on TikTok, people are on Instagram, and as an artist, I'm going to come from the artist point of view. So we make music, we make videos. Most times these days, everything is user-generated, right? So it's user-generated content. So it's interesting to see how individuals are actually doing video recordings. It could be dancing, in whatever way, expressing themselves online, and in the same vein, telling their stories. Okay, so recent example, there's this terminology that we use. It's like a street slang for immigration in Nigeria. It's called Japa, right? JAPA. It's just a street slang. They call it Japa. So they're like, like people are making fun of themselves that, oh, when you travel, this is what you think is going on when you get to your host country. But with this user-generated videos that you see online, you are seeing people's actual experiences. So recent case in point is this lady from Canada who did a video of how lonely she has been in Canada, right? Crying, very emotional on the video. And this video went viral. Right? And because that video went viral, a lot of eyes saw it and they were able to rally round. The video went viral to the extent that the people who have been in Canada for a while reached out to her and said, you know what, let's meet up. Let's try and make you feel better. You know, mental health is at stake. So I was just using that as an example of how we can build a community through the power of social media, through the power of digital technology, through the power of apps. So that's just one example. And because things like that can inform those that are back home as to what they should expect when they do come here. You understand? Beyond just what people tell them firsthand, because people tend to tell them the highlights. And I know even social media has a tendency to show just highlights. But when people have digital, the phone so accessible to them, they can document every aspect, and we can have people with the low times like that express how their stories of moving to a new country has been so far, not all so far so good, to be so far so bad, and how can we, what are the solutions we can do? So yeah, so that's the power of social media through what I do, the talk show. Yes, it has focused more on people that have been here for a while. So they're talking about their achievements. These are people that have been here for a while and they're talking about their journey so far. But we can also learn from those stories, right? So I do this talk show and I talk to people who have inspiring stories to tell. They've built businesses. How did they start from the bottom and how did they get here? So that diaspora talk show also serves the same purpose of intimating people about the experiences of people and what they can do to avoid the missteps that they have made, right? So YouTube is accessible to everyone. So I tend to not just leave it on the AfroVibes platform, which is the TV and radio media company. I also put it on YouTube, you understand? So people can have access to that also. So yes, that's another way. In terms of film, we all watch Netflix, we all watch movies online, even on YouTube. So through the arts, through the entertainment as an actress, I believe when I was told to send a little profile about me, I wrote in there that I am an actress. And the recent work that I did is actually documenting the story of an LGBTQ refugee. I play the African mother. How do we address homophobia in the Black diaspora? We may say we are running away from it from home. But when we do get here, we might meet a community also that we might experience that pushback. So in me taking on the role of that African mother and telling the experiences of the characters, people can watch movies like that. People can watch short films like that. And because, of course, we can't all underestimate the power of film and theater, in the community. So yeah, so that also plays a very important role. So yeah, there are various ways like that. But of course, the one that jumps out the most is social media, because we are all on social media, and some, especially Gen Z millennials, they get their news. Nobody really sits down to watch CNN and Fox News these days. People get their news from TikTok. People are, short. Their attention span is short. So the news has to be delivered in 30-second bits and 1-minute bits. So news, when it's unbiased or when it's not carried by the main media, user-generated news, like things happening in real time and people pulling out their phones to record, you understand, and posting it. We get information from there. We can actually see the experiences of people in real time. Yes.
Thank you. Oh, okay, yes, I am on. Thank you so much. And I do have some follow-up questions, but first, yes. Uyapo, if you could please provide your insight.
Yes, can you hear me? Okay. I like what both panelists have discussed, the emphasis on social media, how it is topical, how it is now at the center of communication, especially for young people. Especially in Africa, young people expected their numbers, their demographic numbers are also expected to double, sometimes even triple. So I think the word social media and not just social media and even other digital technologies also should come into play. So what our organization, Afro Communities of Hope, we were still starting to teach these migrants these storytelling techniques, but we were working in collaboration with other community radio stations that are also like-minded. That have already been there. So one of the most impressive creative communication channel that employs technology is their open mic session. So now what they do, they invite upcoming artists who usually are migrants and are not able to access some of these spotlight venues so that they can showcase their talents. So they gather these upcoming artists and use that platform to create that social cohesion and for them to get to explore their life in a new city, in a new town, in a new country. So I think that's another a very important aspect that we should look at when considering social media. That there's to be some creative event or creative communication platforms that are able to attract the attention. The previous speaker mentioned how the teenagers or maybe young people, how their attention is their attention is now short. So it's important now to be creative and to come up with a different strategic media materials for different platforms. TikTok is one idea, is one platform, but it is definitely different, completely different from a different social media application like X. So yes, I do agree of the mention of technology, particularly new media technologies.
Thank you. And as you all are talking about kind of the medium in which you use and how you disseminate, what I can't help but notice, reoccurring from all three of you, is the use of microhistory. And so microhistory is a tool, or rather a technology that historians use to focus on a specific person or a specific subject in order to tell the larger narrative of what's going on, in their local place, in the national, or also for them, their country of origin, and global spheres. And so the important thing here, and what you all are highlighting, is that this is recursive. By looking at specific subjects and by specific people, you're able to disseminate narratives to a larger audience in order to empower them. And so my question, and again, whoever just wants to tackle it first, as you all work with specific subjects, usually one person at a time, how does it assist in understanding what is happening in that subject's local geography, their national geography, their country of origin, and the globe?
Okay. I don't know. Should I go first? Maybe I have a habit of going first. Sorry. So how I get your question is, I think when it comes to maybe types of maybe podcasts and media, I'm happy that the people also on the panel are into the same thing. Is that when you have a guest and let's say I'm interviewing someone from, let's say, Uganda, and he's in China where I am, and let's say he's a student and he's studying this and this. Yes, you'd want to talk about the cliche, like what he's telling you in his bio. He's studying this and this and this and started this. But to make a conversation more human, more have the emotional aspect of it, I think through me, I don't know, I wouldn't say about others. I believe the art of conversation is trying to make someone talk what they have not spoken out so much to others. It makes the conversation much more meaningful even to the listener. So when you talk about someone from Uganda and he's talking about, let's say, he has come to China to study, you tell him, why did you study this? What inspired you to study this? What do you think this thing will pack when you go back to Uganda and this and this? So from that, you can create sort of like a sketch plan of Ugandan society, of Ugandan views on Uganda and this and this. Recently, I recently interviewed someone from here in China who works in branding, sort of branding, and he's from Ghana. And he told me that he just left Ghana to come to China, literally just for money, and he just applied the form randomly and just got by God's chance came to China. Then I asked him, "Is it the situation with other members of the Ghanaian society?" He said, "Yes, but we some of us think education, the higher education you get, the more status you have, that. So you kind of use that avenue." So the conversation shifted from what he was doing to why he was doing it and how that affects people around his society. So I feel like when we're trying to get the stories, especially when you're trying to show the real African narrative and how it affects us at a global way, try to get the inner conversation from the people. Try to learn the art of conversation. I know some shows are scripted, but even when you're trying to write the script for it, try to look for the attributes that even someone who does not know both you and the host and is randomly clicking on your show can learn so much. Yeah, that's what I can say. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Okay. I hope I understand your question clearly, but I think what you mean is that from what angle do we, I'm going to just go with JP's model of the guests that are being interviewed. So for me, what you said about microhistory, it may it may apply in this situation. I don't know if you're familiar with Chimamanda Adichie. She's a Nigerian author. The one about the danger of a single story. She said something about she didn't know she was Black until she came to the US. So when I approach my guests on my show, for example, I don't just limit it to Africans. The fact that you are a Black diasporan, you are a guest on my show because the audience is diverse and we actually want to engage diverse audiences, even though our guest might be a Black diasporan. We want the wider community to be, intimated on the issues at hand. So I'm interviewing I interview African Americans about their relationships with Africans here. You understand? There's that dichotomy that's going on. There's a little, story around that. I interview African Americans because when Africans come here, they need to realize that being seen on the outside, we don't know if you're African American just by the color of your skin. Until you speak and we hear an accent, you're Black, you're Black. So Africans, find it hard to get that into their heads. Like, we know the story of hands up, don't shoot, how the police is with, the Black race here, unfortunately. So if you get stopped by police, they don't care if before you open your mouth, they just see that you're Black, they just assume you're African American. So we need to relate with the African American experience because for some of us come here, we don't know much. Our ideas are informed by the media, what we watch in Hollywood. We think that's what America looks like. Some of us didn't even know that the USA has 50 states. And one state is like traveling to another country. Each state is far from each other. So all these perspectives that we did not have information and knowledge about. But thankfully, these days with global media, like social media, people are sharing information, so it's easily accessible. But some people still don't know. So we need to know things like that. So I talk to African Americans, to let them share their experiences relating with Africans. Some of them that want to go back to Africa, some of them who had positive and negative experiences with Africans and what Africans can do when they get here to foster a nice, social relationship with the citizens of the host country that you are in, things like that. Go beyond that, interview embassy officials, what we can do differently to acclimatizing new, immigrants into the society. Because unfortunately, I want to say this, embassies, they staff their employees directly from home. So you have the Nigerian embassy, and they bring someone from Nigeria who hasn't lived in America, who doesn't understand the culture, and you bring them directly, and they don't understand, and they can't relate with the immigrant who walks up to the door and needs help, things like that. So there's just different angles to this. I'm probably going off point, but what do we consider? We do not just consider nationality. We don't just consider geographic location. We don't just consider ethnicity. We just consider Black diaspora, period. It's kind of blanket, but as blanket as it is, we can still derive some specific things that whatever audience is listening can pull from and relate to. It's just humanity. The whole experience is humanized in my conversations. Everybody has emotions that they're dealing with. And once you can emotionally connect to the stories that are being told by these individuals, then you can gain something from it. You can chew the weeds and remove the weed, and you can, run with it or take some away. But the experiences can still inspire others. So it's not just one category of people. It's wide. Thank you.
Okay, to add on, and I completely agree. It's very difficult. It's in fact, maybe it could be even impossible for people to understand a certain group using a fragmented viewpoint. When you delink people from their past, when you delink them from their cultures, when you delink them from their places of origin, you are bound to come up with narratives that are misinformed. So it's virtually impossible. All these things should be looked at with the understanding that they are interlinked. The historical aspects, the social, the political, and the economic variables of different demographics, particularly around migrants, they all determine, and they make us fully understand the different narratives and the richness of their stories individually. So I do believe and do echo their sentiments that it is very, very important to understand from a holistic point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that word holistic is key. What continues throughout the three of you, the same thing that I see is this connection to global ties. And you all are concerned with consciousness. And it's no secret that there's contention, if we're talking about the United States, between African Americans and African migrants and Afro-diasporic people and Afro-Latino, because there's not a consciousness. It's like Blackness is a marker, even though it's a constructed category, but it still brings on a very real reality just by basis of phenotype. And in that, even though there are distinctness between these identities, there's a sharedness. And that's what I'm hearing from all of you in this Black diaspora, if we move from African to Black diaspora. And so what I'm wondering with the work you all have done, whether it be in journalism, whether it be interviewing a specific person, have you come across, I think, kind of in your work, something that highlights this, that highlights the holistic, the globalness?
Where's JP to go first?
I was giving you the opportunity to go first. This time, go first.
This time I should go first?
Yeah.
Okay. What makes it global? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if there's any conversation you've had on your show that you think really highlights what you're getting to, the sharedness in Blackness,
Oh,
despite whatever the country of origin is or the where they currently live.
I'm trying to because it's not just my show, right? It's just also my brand outside of the show. Because in a way, what I do still continues even when I'm not interviewing, when I'm not doing the podcast, or, as an artist. I trying to remember. I'm trying to use the real life example during the Russia-Ukrainian uproar, when the Nigerian embassy wasn't too proactive with taking care of her citizens, especially that there is known to be a lot of Nigerian students in medical schools, of course, because it's cheaper over there. The power of, I leveraged personally the power of WhatsApp. So they were told, oh, you can go to Poland, right? And then some Nigerian private individuals this time, they're not relying on government, gathered together and opened up their homes. But these students did not have that information, right? So in order to make that information spread fast, using my network of the people that I know by virtue of my artist brand, and someone shared it, all those forwarded messages on WhatsApp with the info of the Polish, Nigerian African migrants in Poland who were willing to open up their homes. So we had that screenshot and we kept it moving. Created groups, kept it moving. That way, I personally got word that there's this guy who had a girlfriend there and said it was as a result of that shared WhatsApp screenshot that she found a safe space. You understand? So just using my brand as I don't want to consider myself an influencer. Just to leverage the network we have as organizations, as individuals, to make useful information spread to the benefits of African migrants who might be in a place of need. There's another social media. This is not me this time, but I just want to use them as an example. There's a guy called Shakabaz on Instagram. He might come across as controversial, but he does a lot of that. Like, he connects the globe with his post. He tries to involve people in, India with what's happening in the Congo. His post can be triggering, but that's because he's on ground. He travels a lot too. You understand? So, but he's always controversial in terms of showcasing the things that the government are not doing well. And people are always like, wow, you got to be careful, protect this man at all costs, kind of thing. There's also on the lighter side, influencers on YouTube. There's this one called Wade Maya. There's Tayo Aino. By going to traveling physically to different countries, showcasing what's happening and how we are in a way all interconnected. We are all interconnected. So what's happening in the Israel is affecting those of us in the US. What's happening in the Congo or Rwanda, we might say, oh, we are not there physically, but it is affecting, even if it's slightly economically, it is affecting us in some way that we might not know. So using our platforms to speak positive and to showcase things that the mainstream media, traditional media will not necessarily showcase is very important. And I've used my platform to that effect. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Yes, you did. I would just like to build on a couple of points there before we hand it off.
Okay.
When you said like your brand, I think what I'm getting is artistry. Like, you
Yeah.
are an artist who has just so many ways of reaching, especially like when you think of the way that you engage with Yoruba culture and disseminate those narratives.
Yes.
Or also what you're doing. You've kind of spoke repeatedly about Afrobeats. and its global influence. But what you're talking about Israel too. What's happening in Palestine, tactics by the IDF are also happening on the British Channel, use of surveillance and AI. It's happening in the US to train police forces to police against Black populations or populations of color, to be more specific. So yes, it's very important, all the things that you're saying. It's just what I wanted to add. And whoever would like to go next.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'll go last.
All right. I just wanted to add here the key word there again now being art. I recently interviewed an artist who goes by the name Rasta the artist. His name is Lebane Sirenje. So he is a Zimbabwean artist, but he is based in South Africa. So most of his art, so he does portraits of celebrities. It could be political or social celebrities who would have just passed on. So he does portraits of those. So now, what I wanted to raise was that it is by virtue of him being a migrant and not really being focused on, say, his home country, which is Zimbabwe. It means that art goes, it intrudes colonial borders, it intrudes boundaries that have been set now by the current administration in the global order, which is neoliberalism. So I wanted also to highlight how he himself has relatives from both sides of the Zimbabwean border and from the Botswanan border, which also cuts across the lines that sometimes we are made to see and feel as visible. So I like his artistry in that regard. I don't know if it quite answers or it illustrates how we are connected or in that sense. Thanks.
Okay, so I think I go. Okay, okay. Um, thank you. When it comes to guests who give this holistic approach, I just have three in mind. The first one would be a lady, she's called Louisa, who is the founder of Kunda Kids. Kunda Kids is more of like a children's animation book and cartoon series that she how she was inspired that she has a kid, a son who is about 3 to 4 years old. And when she was trying to look for content that her son, as a black growing up in London, can try to resonate with, she failed to find it. Everything was white, the curtains were white, the door was white, everything white, and didn't really represent the culture of the child. So her and her husband founded Kunda Kids, and all their stories are based on African characters, African stories across the whole continent. And it's quite amazing how she's trying to now give content which many black children across the world can try to relate to. And that was something amazing. And another guest who I would say, though hasn't been a guest yet, we're still working on it, is an organization called Israel United in Christ. At first, when I saw the name Israel United in Christ, I was skeptical because you know what's happening and all this thing. But it's more of a black empowerment movement in the States, and it tries to use the word of God to empower Africans, and not Africans, blacks in the black and Hispanic people in the States to believe in themselves more, help them work on issues such as mental health, employment. It's more of a community organization that uses Christianity or religion to help address issues that the black and Hispanic people are going through in the States. So that has been those are the guys who I think have hosted again with that broad perspective of the community that we're going through. Yeah.
Thank you all. And I was just paying very close attention to what you all were saying. Um, about how important it is to, I think, highlight stories to speak to larger movements and how it helps to enlighten. There's sharedness. I mean, not just sharedness, how we have the diaspora, but there's also kind of like a comparative thing that's going on in the different geographies that we're talking about in these different respective locations. I think there's so much more I want to ask you all, but we're kind of restricted to an hour. And so initially, how I had thought about us coming to a close was asking about how does the technology in your respective platforms provide hope for African migrants? But to shift it based off the way that this conversation has went, let's continue to talk about global ties. You all are are doing anti-colonial work. You're breaking national boundaries in order to forge collective consciousness while highlighting individual stories. And getting very intimate with the individual stories, like you were saying, to provide something new, to provide something insightful for others. And so I guess let me then change the question to how does speaking about the realities of global Blackness through technology provide hope for African migrants?
Go first. Okay. How does it provide hope to African migrants? One, my goal, more than money or anything or fame, is that when someone listens to my podcast, you get inspired to do whatever you want to do to empower your community. Um, I've interviewed a few people who have been migrants before and are in the diaspora and are doing amazing work. I feel like where I come from, we believe that only going abroad is just to work, toil, and hopefully get a citizenship for your family and stay there. But my point is, when you reach there, try to also bring in some skill sets, some added benefits that you can take back home. I think that's very key because end of the day, as a Black person, where I am, I don't feel more at home than I will be home if I'm to say it in that way. And that crosses across because I've interviewed people from Haiti. Still, it's the same issues that they face in Haiti are the same issues that I would face in Uganda, and you know. But how I use my platform is just inspiring them that you can do it, and when you go out there, when you leave the borders of your country, try as much as possible also think about in a skill set or also an added benefits to your people back home. Let it not be a generational trend that we're just moving in a train and moving. Let it be that also and so left to go to the UK, did this, came back home, started a fifth grade hospital that improved the lives of the people in our society and village. That is something I always aim to look at when I'm trying to interview someone who's in the diaspora. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just feeding off what JP said is interesting. You said that because in my music, right, the music that I make, I'm always singing. I know it's kind of like find your way back home messaging. Like there's in Yoruba culture, we have a proverb that says "Ilela bosimiyoko," that after you've journeyed for a while and you've gone, you have to come back home. So even though migrants may not be going home physically or geographically, mentally, they can shift and go back home in terms of giving back, right? Giving back to the community. Don't disconnect totally. So when I do all those Yoruba language videos, I'm giving you hope. When I write the lyrics to my music and I sing, find your way back home, I'm telling you that, don't forget about home. Home is still origin. Home is where you come from. Even if you had physically relocated your whole family, you should still think about empowering the community back home, right? investing in businesses, helping the economy, giving employment. You understand? So if, with the guests that I interviewed too, at the end of the interview, I asked them what do they want their legacy to be? And in what way? If they haven't started thinking about it, at least at the end of the interview, they're going home thinking about what can they do to give back, right? So I'm thinking about home, and I'm making them the African Americans. It's my dream and desire that even if they don't relocate, they should visit. They should visit the continent. It's one of my passion work here, that I'm connecting with my Black diasporans to visit at least once in their lifetime, visit the continent. And because the ones that have gone ahead, they had such an experience that they cannot describe because it's spiritual, right? And I give kudos to organizations that organize tours. It's something I probably want to look into later. And it's not just Nigeria. We have different, wherever the Nigerian, African country that they connect to, they're already connecting to it through music, arts, and culture, right? With the Afro beats and everything, with the movies, the Black Panther, we are having content out there that's making people not forget their culture. And what I do too, talking about Yoruba language and proverbs and making sure those are documented. I just recently got assigned to Genti. It's an app called Genti, where African storytelling is on that app, and you can, sign up and stream language. You can stream stories in African languages, different ones. So my Yoruba proverbs are on there. People can listen to that and, connect. And that can give them hope that, if I go home, I'll be embraced. Ghana opened up their doors recently. Different African countries are giving free visas, so I'm a proponent of, eventually going back home, and which I will do myself. I'm practicing to practice what I'm preaching. So yeah, in those ways, through the music, through the culture, we are giving hope globally to the Black diaspora. Thank you.
Okay. To add, I do believe that there is hope. I do believe that the new technologies have afforded us the space now to tell stories where we do not portray migrants as victims, which is a plus, where we can tell stories where their self-determination can be shown, where new and positive narratives can be explored. So I really see hope in that, as well as new types of storytelling like the solutions journalism approach, whereby you look at stories that are engageful, that are deeply researched, so that they provide solutions and explore them in a holistic approach as well. So I also think that I also believe that also maybe highlighting some negative narratives, or maybe some negative events, maybe not say narratives, but negative events. It could also be an act of resistance, using a bell hooks method, where she chronicles the negative events of Black women. That could also be used as a way to say, okay, this is happening. We're not going to sweep it under the carpet, but we're going to expose it and speak about it and challenge it and negotiate its meaning and its implication in terms of power. So yes, I do believe there is hope. Thanks.
Thank you. I think you all ended us on a really powerful note, to speak about finding your way back home and resistance. That there's power in the spiritualness of thinking to the origins, and to really display that diaspora is not linear. I think that is a very, very powerful note to end on, even though I'm about to contradict myself. Before we end, I did want to just extend a thank you to all of you. And if you have yet to check out their platforms, you must, to see the engagement with these different individuals, with fitness practitioners and with hairdressers, and to see performance, and to see how, the diaspora relates to climate and the importance of women's stories. So I would just like to say thank you so much, and it was a pleasure to speak to all of you. Um, is there anything else you all would like to add before we close off? Nice. Well, thank you all so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, and happy
Thank
International
you.
Migrants Day.
Yes. Thank you.
Lessons.